The Pikmin story and timeline was simple, the keyword there being was. For the first 3 games and also Hey Pikmin, the timeline was self-explanatory and easy to follow. We got a nice little overarching story and it was pretty fun. Then we got Pikmin 4, which made the timeline a complete mess. If you've managed to live under a rock, Pikmin ever since the game came out, the newest entry filled with the timeline, and now people are saying that Pikmin 4 was a reboot of the series, and that the other games just did not happen. Then some people say that no, it actually isn't a reboot, it just takes place here in the timeline. Or here, or actually it only retconned Pikmin 1, or no, it actually also retconned Pikmin 2, yeah, it's a mess. This was meant to be in my Pikmin 4 video, but it was a comparatively really minor point and ended up taking up too much space. So I decided to just cut it and turn it into this video. That should already give you a bit of a hint at how confusing they made the timeline in this game. Anyways, before we delve into why the timeline and story is a complete mess now, be sure to subscribe for high quality Pikmin videos weekly. If we want to delve into what happened to the timeline, we first have to briefly go over it, excluding Pikmin 4. And it's a pretty simple one. This video also has story spoilers for basically every game, so if you don't want that, click off the video. It starts at Pikmin 1 where Olimar is on vacation, but he ends up crashing his ship the SS Dolphin and lands on PNF 44, where he meets the Pikmin for the first time. With their help, he is able to fully repair his ship by collecting all 30 parts, and he also picks up a ball cap as a souvenir for his son, which is shown in the opening of Pikmin 2. Pikmin 1 has 3 endings, but only the best one is canon. While Olimar was on PNF 44, the president sent a recently hired employee, Louie, on his first mission with some golden Pikmin carrots. He eats them. This leads to Octave Freight going into debt and Olimar's ship getting sold off, which Olimar immediately finds out about when he lands back onto his home planet Hoctase. It turns out that the souvenir Olimar brought back for his son is worth a lot of money, so the president sends both Olimar and Louie back onto PNF 44 to collect more treasures to pay off the debts. Over the course of Pikmin 2, they pay off the debts, but Olimar leaves Louie behind, or Louie intentionally stayed behind. It's never confirmed which one is true, and the president joins Olimar on the planet to get more treasures and to rescue Louie. Eventually they get all the treasures and Octave Freight is freed from their debts until Pikmin 3 happens. The company ends up in debt again, so Olimar and Louie are sent back to PNF 44. While they are there, a newly introduced planet known as Kopai is experiencing severe food shortages. And after sending out Spearows to search for plants with resources, they discover PNF 44 is rich with fruits. So they send out 3 explorers, Alf, Brittany and Charlie, to investigate, who end up crash landing. While those 3 are on the planet, Olimar and Louie finish their job, but Olimar notices a reading of a golden object in the Formidable Oak, and he heads over there despite Louie warning him not to. Olimar gets captured by the Plasm Wraith while Louie tries to escape with the ship. Louie's escape fails and he ends up in the Twilight River while the crashed ship is broken in the Garden of Hope. While Olimar and Louie were on the planet, Olimar took the Cosmic Drive Key, which is needed for the Kopai ship, the SS Drake, to leave the atmosphere, and he took it as a souvenir for his son. The Kopais learn of Olimar due to his notes, and they find out he has the Cosmic Drive Key. They make it to the Twilight River, get an SOS message from Louie, and rescue him, only for him to think he was captured and steal all of their fruits and try to make a run for it, which fails, and they rescue him again. Louie then informs the Kopai trio of Olimar's location, which is in the Formidable Oak, and they head down and save him from the Plasm Wraith. Then everybody heads home happily ever after. Well, it turns out the president is not happy about his ship being in ruins on the planet, so he sends Olimar and Louie back to fix it, which is shown in the side story Olimar's Comeback, which is in Pikmin 3 Deluxe. They fix the ship with not much difficulties. Sometime later, Olimar crashes onto an unknown planet in Hey Pikmin and needs to get Sparklium from treasures in order to fuel his ship to leave. And he uses the Pikmin to accomplish this as always. He also loses the ship part that converts the Sparklium into fuel, so he has to fight the final boss of the game to get it back, and then he heads away. This game's placement in the timeline isn't directly stated, but Olimar in Pikmin 3 explicitly states that Pikmin 2 was the previous time he went to PNF 44, so Hey Pikmin would have to take place after Pikmin 3. This game also might not be canon, as it is a spin-off and has basically never been acknowledged since its release, but not much changes if it is or isn't. Anyways, that's the timeline. It's simple, but I like it. You'll notice it mostly goes in order. The only inconsistency in this story is that I said that Olimar lands in an unknown planet in Hey Pikmin, and I did not just forget the name of PNF 404, no, it's apparently a completely different planet that just so happens to resemble Earth, have Pikmin, and several other enemies from PNF 404 on it. But it is not PNF 404. Don't know why they did this, it's barely brought up and changes nothing along with making 0 sense. After those 5 Pikmin games, we got Pikmin 4. This game's story is that Olimar crashes his ship, the SS Dolphin, onto PNF 404, and the game states that this is his first time he has crashed here. He meets a dog named Moss and repairs his ship, but while trying to leave, Moss goes onto the ship and gets violently ill. So Olimar tries to head back to the planet, but his life system goes out and he crashes. Moss puts him in the onion and he becomes a leafling. Olimar was able to send out an SOS signal before he crashed, so several people came to try and rescue him. And they all end up crashing except for one employee of the Rescue Corps. They quickly meet the new space dog Ochi and rescue the Rescue Corps, several castaways, and Olimar himself, along with curing him from his leafling form. But while trying to wrap up their business and leave, Ochi gets violently ill due to a leaf on his tail, and somehow Louie has returned, and is on the planet to save Olimar by order from the president, but gets bored and instead decides to run off with Moss and kidnap a veterinarian, who is needed to cure Ochi. After she's rescued, Louie runs off with a different dog into a deep cave, abandoning Moss, and the vet says that the DNA from this new dog could possibly cure Ochi. They track Louie down, fight and defeat the ancient Sirehounds, and his DNA is able to cure Ochi. So everyone is able to leave except for the Pikmin and Moss. That's the story in Balamory, and that does seem like you could just plop into the Pikmin timeline very easily after Pikmin Tree or Hey, but that's not what happened. The most common sentiment is that Pikmin 4 just fully rebooted the series, as throughout the game Olimar acts like things he has previously seen, such as the Pikmin and onions, are brand new. And there are basically no mentions of past events in the entire game, and when there is, it's small notes that seem to be trying to actively erase what happened. The most well-known one is this one where the events that caused Pikmin 2 are stated to be a bad dream that Olimar had, heavily implying that Pikmin 2 did not actually happen, and Olimar saying this is his first time crashing and meeting the Pikmin for the first time is heavily implying that Pikmin 1 didn't happen either. Is this reboot thing true? Kinda, I think. It's not trying to fully reboot the series, but it does seem to retcon some entries and events. For a heads up, the reason I sound so unsure is because I am unsure. This game is written like it's a reboot and a part of the normal timeline at the same time, and we'll see how confusing it can get. The most concrete info the game gives us is that Pikmin Tree is going to happen and that this game takes place before us. As the Tree co-pies Alf, Brittany, and Charlie— oh wait, no, sorry, they're not in this game. Instead we have York, Nell, and Don Bergman, who look exactly like the Kopai trio from Pikmin Tree, act exactly like the Kopai trio from Pikmin Tree, and are implied to be related to the Kopai trio from Pikmin Tree. Why not just have them be the Kopai trio then? Well, anyways, they state that Kopai is undergoing a potential food crisis. And if you read Olimar's notes on the music box that plays the Pikmin Tree theme, he says it's sending a warning about unexpected troubles in the future. Both of these are implying that Pikmin Tree will happen and that Pikmin 4 takes place before Pikmin Tree. This is usually missed by people that claim Pikmin 4 fully retcons the other games, as this info is out of the way, but it does seem to show that it isn't a full reboot. Well, if Pikmin 3 is still canon, what about Pikmin 2? Well, we already saw that note about Pikmin 2 being a dream, so it didn't happen. Well, there's also this note from Louie, which says he craves golden Pikmin carrots, and is planning to eat them when the right delivery opportunity occurs. And also in this note and another one, it's implied that he has already eaten them. This can mean Pikmin 2 will happen after Pikmin 4, or because of how scarce and expensive golden Pikmin carrots are, Louie has already eaten them for the events of Pikmin 2. Louie is referred to as a troublemaker, and Olimar seems familiar with his behavior, so it would make sense if Pikmin 2 already happened, as that is the game where he's already implied to have been acting up. But this cannot be true, as Pikmin 4 states that this is Olimar's first time on the planet, and the official Pikmin Garden website states that this game's events are when PNF 404 is discovered. So Pikmin 2 just could not have happened before Pikmin 4. Despite that, Olimar acts like Louie has already done something similar to this in the past, and Olimar also mentions Bullman and the ranging Bloister, which nobody would know about yet since they were never seen during Pikmin 4. He also says he prefers the name Yellow Pikmin to Ear Pikmin, which is in direct reference to a line of dialogue where the Hoctade ship calls them Ear Pikmin when they first meet Yellow Pikmin. There are several pieces of information that only really make sense if Pikmin 2 has already happened, which it couldn't have based on the info Pikmin 4 gives us. The current options for Pikmin 2 is that it happened, didn't happen, or that it is going to happen, and the game and official website feed into all three of these. There's constant pieces of text and dialogue that only work if Pikmin 2 has already happened. They seem to be foreshadowing the actual events of Pikmin 2 inside of Pikmin 4, but also seem to be trying to say that Pikmin 2 didn't happen. The closest thing we get to an official timeline for Pikmin 4 is on the official Pikmin Garden website, where it shows us all of these spaceships along with a series of events, which starts with how the president got the Hoctade ship, then the events of Pikmin 4, followed by the events of Pikmin 3, and then it ends, which is saying Pikmin 1 and 2 did not happen, which seems to be contradicting the potential foreshadowing they're setting up for Pikmin 2. It also tries to deny Pikmin 1 further in another article where it confirms that Pikmin 4's crash is the first time Olimar has ever been on the planet. That timeline of the only games being 4 and then 3 wouldn't really make much sense, as Olimar references the events of Pikmin 2 and Pikmin 3 a good few times. Not to mention the discrepancy of him meeting rock and winged Pikmin in Pikmin 4, but Pikmin 3 states that that game is the one where he first meets the two types. It just doesn't line up very well. Because the game is saying that Pikmin 2 either hasn't happened yet or isn't going to happen at all, Louie himself doesn't really make sense in this game. He's still greatly implied to be a new employee, as he isn't even familiar with Olimar and he can't remember what he looks like, and gets Leafling Olimar confused for him and states he is an Olimar-shaped object. But apparently Olimar is super familiar with Louie and his antics, but what the fuck are his antics? This is the first time he's been on the planet. So I guess he was doing really egregious stuff at Hoctate Freight, but wouldn't he just get fired? He's at his most devious in this game, yet this is his first time here, and I doubt he was doing anything remotely similar at Hoctate. He's a lot more actively malicious in this game and has no motives aside from eat the bugs, along with planning to sabotage delivery missions, where it was previously implied in Pikmin 2 he just couldn't control himself. And in every other Pikmin game he didn't ditch Olimar the millisecond he landed on the planet. Pikmin 4 it just seems he doesn't care about Olimar at all. He literally sees him and makes no attempt to save him. In every other game, he does try to stick by Olimar and even warns them about the formidable oak. In Pikmin 3, he did steal the Kopais fruit, but it's worth noting that he was unconscious and tied up beforehand, had no idea who the Kopais were, and had recently been attacked. In an unused cutscene, he implies he thought the Kopais captured him, which shows his behavior there was impulsive, but he had clear reasoning to do what he did, even if he was mistaken. Frankly though, this is communicated horribly in Pikmin 3. He's kind of portrayed as an idiot in Pikmin 4 who can't even remember what his one co-worker looks like, is purely driven by food, and throws a complete hissy fit when Olimar wants him to return. He feels like the fan interpretation of Louie instead of the actual Louie. I feel like if Pikmin 4 didn't try to meld with Pikmin 2's events and instead had it concretely take place after Pikmin 2, his antics would make much more sense. It would also make more sense, and this could only happen if he had already met Olimar, if he was with him for the first crash, got separated with him because of the crash, and is able to live because of his known cooking skills, which are seen in the other games as he cooks basically every creature you encounter. He'd eventually run into Olimar as a leafling, assume he's dead, and proceed to try and live on the planet on his own as he thinks he has no escape, and he'd eventually run into Moss. After the Rescue Corps rescue Olimar, Olimar could just tell the Rescue Corps that they also need to rescue Louie. And any antics of Louie trying to kidnap people would be written off as just him trying to help them, as he would assume they have no means of escaping. This feels like it would be more in line with Louie's character and give him a solid reason for his actions. In the final game it just feels like they wanted Louie there, but instead of finding a good reason why he's there or what he's doing, they just kept trying to find excuses to what he's doing to patch up any plot holes. Along with that, I think the entire story and dialogue makes more sense if it just happened after Pikmin 3 or Hey Pikmin. This big hullabaloo about the timeline in this game is entirely unnecessary and doesn't change much about the plot itself, and really it just makes this game feel disconnected from every other game in the series. I said that this game felt like it was written to be both a reboot and a continuation at the same time, and I genuinely think that is what happened here. They wrote the game as a continuation first, which explains the references, and then tried to switch it into this pseudo-reboot. Not to mention the previously mentioned characters of York, Nell, and Don Bergman are literally called Alf, Brittany, and Charlie in the files, which implies they were meant to be the original Kopai trio from Pikmin 3, and it's likely they were changed because the story changes. There's this developer interview where they discuss the story of Pikmin 4 and they say, to make it easier for newcomers to get emotionally invested in the world of Pikmin, we designed the game so that players themselves would become the Rescue Corps' new recruits. So even if you're not familiar with past titles, you'll be fine. So I'm assuming the reason this game tries to do this reboot thing is to appeal to new fans and make it feel less overwhelming for them. But like every other feature made to appeal to new fans in this game, it misses the mark and is executed really poorly. You don't have to bulldoze the other game's events just to have it be less confusing to new fans. I think their philosophy behind this was being able to introduce mechanics in Pikmin without Olimar constantly going, "Huh, I know this guy from Pikmin 2! But you don't need to try retcon Pikmin 1 and 2 in order to accomplish that. You just explain the mechanics without referencing the past games and have the story be focused away from the past games, which they usually are. The writing just feels like they started changing the game into a reboot 3/4 into the game's development, and then the writer just sat there going, I don't know, is this a good idea? I like Pikmin 3, I think we'll keep that one canon. Not sure about Pikmin 2. The game releases in an hour, hurry the fuck up! Okay. If I had to say what the timeline is now based on what the game gives us, it is either 4, 2, 3, or just 4, 3. With Pikmin 1 just straight up not happening in either of them, as it is the only game that just straight up cannot make any sense in this timeline. I'm leaning towards 3 to 4 because Nintendo themselves have seemed to state that, and it just seems more likely based on the info the game has given us. So while Pikmin 4 isn't a full reboot, it did retcon some of the past games. Hey Pikmin is also never brought up, despite Sparkling being from that game, so I think that one is gone too. But it did contribute the least to the story and would have been the easiest to write off anyways. Anyways, that does conclude my thoughts on the Pikmin timeline and how Pikmin 4 turned it into an absolute mess. With most of the info you need to understand it being hidden away, and most of it just contradicts other things, and it's just kinda sloppy and poorly written in Pikmin 4. It's such a mess that it had to be splintered off into its own video. It feels like it can't decide what it wants to be. It's like it's dipping its toes in the idea of a reboot, but also doesn't want to go into the dirty reboot water. So it just ends up being a weird mix between a continuation and a reboot, where only some games aren't canon and the reboot part doesn't even change much as the story is still the same. It just makes less sense. I don't know why they did this at all, it just kinda ruins the story, and I'm hoping that this gets undone in the next Pikmin game, as what we have now is a mess that is hard to get invested into, and it just kinda destroys everything the previous games were setting up. Let me know what your thoughts on the timeline are in the comment section, and if you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe for high quality Pikmin videos weekly, or else Pikmin 4 will remove you from the timeline.